Hello everyone. I've got one King Ghidorah foot. I have one Godzilla foot. What I plan on doing is taking some Oyumaru. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's a Japanese compound. You heat it up and it gets soft, it cools off, it gets hard again. You can use it to make molds with for casting. Well, I'm going to take some of that stuff and we're going to make some molds. One of a King Ghidorah foot, or King Ghidorah, depending on what year you watched it, and one of a Godzilla foot. That way I can make some footprints on the diorama. I'll be back in a bit. I gotta go get some really hot water and I gotta throw this stuff in some really hot water. So, back in a second. Well, I'll have the Oyumaru soaking in water that just came off a boil. I don't know how long it's going to take for that to soften up. I do know that water's too dang hot for me to really poke my fingers at it. So I suspect it won't take that long for that stuff to soften up. We'll find out in a second. Thought occurred. I need to make an impression of both feet. So let me get them out of the boxes. Okay, it didn't take that long for this stuff to soften up. And it's all gumming together. It's sticking to my container, giving me long stringy bits. That I don't take as a good thing, because this stuff wasn't really all that cheap. I mean, it wasn't expensive, it just wasn't as cheap as I'd have liked. Okay, drying it off a little bit, patting it down. Seems to take textures really well. Alright. Starting with the Godzilla foot. We're pressing one in. I'm going to press the other one in. Now, I don't need like a huge, wonderful, absolutely accurate, all the way around this thing cast. Okay, I just need the bottom half of his feet cast in this stuff. And it's nice and sticky and gummy. Here, let me move the camera down a little bit. I got the clear version because I wanted to be able to see through it, and I just didn't like the colored versions. I'm gonna go pop that in the freezer because I heard it can cure faster in the freezer. I'm gonna put the other packet in the water so I can get King Ghidorah's feet. It doesn't take this stuff very long at all to soften in the water. And I do have bits and pieces of it sticking inside the container. It will stick to a plastic container like this. So in the future I'm going to use a glass bowl and see if it'll stick to that. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, back again, letting it sit. I'm going to put a link to another video on this stuff up on YouTube. TheRealMythril, she made a good video of this stuff. I got this from one of the members over at SMA, Scale Model Addict. I'm not gonna say his name because I'm gonna mispronounce it, but it's very close to Bishop. He suggested I track this stuff down and give it a try. So far, I don't have any complaints about it. We'll see though. I haven't pulled the feet out of the molding. This stuff feels more like silicone than plastic. It's getting warmed up. I think it changes color slightly when it's finally heated up. It goes from opaque to clear. It does like to stick to this plastic container, which bothers me some. I don't like that. Let's see if that's soft enough. I know in places it is. One way to find out is to try. Yeah, it may not be soft enough in the core. It's taken on the texture of the paper towel well enough. So let's take a King Ghidorah foot and press her in. As again, I don't need an incredibly good casting of this, just something that shows the bottom of the feet well. So it doesn't have to look like these feet. It just has to take on the texture of these feet. I think that's going to work. So let me go put that to cool. And then we'll get the feet out. I'll be back in a second. Godzilla feet are probably cooled off enough. Okay, it's gone opaque. Just pulled it out of the freezer. Let's see if I can get a Godzilla foot out of it. And I can. And it's holding its shape really well. There's one foot free. Let's see if we can get this other foot free. And it's holding the shape really well. Since I use clear, you guys can't see that too well, I don't think. Let me get my remote to the camera and zoom in and see if you can see any of that detail it's holding. Yeah, you can see it in the claws. It is holding the detail of the claws. I'm going to let that get fully to room temperature. And I think I'm going to put some plaster of Paris in there, make some plaster of Paris feet. Because plaster of Paris is real easy to mix up. And I can't get confused between plaster of Paris, and Godzilla. Okay, first lesson. No paper towel on Oyumaru or whatever this stuff is. Because paper towel just sticks right to it. I'm sure when I reheat that, the paper towel will come free. But that paper towel just stuck right to it. So I would use a silicone baking mat or something for the backing on this. Okay, and it seems to have picked up the detail of the feet really well. And it feels like silicone, to be honest with you. It's probably some sort of temperature-dependent silicone. Let me go get King Ghidorah's feet and see what we come up with. Alright, same problem. It's ate up part of the paper towel. So keep in mind, don't try to cool it down with paper towel. But this looks like it did an equally good job of making an impression of King Ghidorah's feet. I got the nails and everything. So I've got molds. We'll get some plaster of Paris, mix it up, see what we get. I'm not going to put these feet on the respective monsters until I know what I'm getting here. Okay? But it looks like this is going to work just fine. So I'll be back later. Alright, got the plaster of Paris mixed. I mixed it a little on the watery side, so this is going to take a bit to cure. You can see them sitting on my desk right there. I also overfilled them a little bit, but that's okay, because all I want is the impression of the feet. I don't care about the top half. If I was worried about the top half, I don't think this stuff will work very well. Simply because I can't see making a two-part mold with this. It might be possible. You'd have to use like a silicone mat or some oil or something to separate the halves. Make some registry pins or something. But we're going to let that sit. I use no mold release, no nothing on there. Mainly because I figure once the plaster of Paris is set, I can use some hot water to re-soften the Oyumaru and then remove my parts. Okay? So if I have to, I can do that. I don't think that's going to come to that. I think this is going to pull out just fine. But anyhow, one thing when working with plaster of Paris, do not pour it down your sink. You'll end up with concrete pipes and calling a plumber and a bunch of other stuff. I am not speaking from personal experience. I'm speaking from an uncle who was a plumber. He told me people would do crazy stuff like that. You pour that down your pipes, you're talking about an expensive repair. So I gotta go outside and clean out my mixing bucket in the yard. I'll be back in a bit. We're gonna let that cure. You'll get to see the end results once it's cured. Well, I got impatient. I couldn't wait for the plaster of Paris to cure up all the way. Don't worry, I didn't break anything. I just couldn't wait. So let's show you what I got. Here's one of the feet. Now, you can see that stuff picked up pretty good detail on there. I've already put away the original feet. Give me a foot. Give me a second and I'll bring out the original foot. I haven't pulled King Ghidorah's feet out yet because they're much deeper molds and I don't want to have issues with the plaster of Paris breaking. And it seems to be in there a lot harder. Whereas the Godzilla feet were not hard to get out at all. Again, Here's our foot. And you can see it picked up some pretty good detail in there. Okay, and yes, the feet are that flat across the bottom. And again, it picked up good detail. There you go, you can really see it now. So let's compare that with the original foot, shall we? I don't think it really matters which foot I grab, except for one of them really thinks it needs to be on the floor. Okay, so looking at that, I think the Oyumaru picked up pretty good detail. Here's the other mold. There's a lot of flash. Again, I'm not trying to get a perfect copy of the whole foot. Just the underside so I can make some footprints. Alright? Really just trying to get the underside so I can make some footprints. And yes, the underside of the Godzilla's foot is really that flat. Here, let me go ahead and zoom the camera in. I'm trying to put the stuff up there because the camera works better if I put it up near the lens. But we'll try it this way real quick. Dang it, they don't want to let me hold on to them today at all. Now if I can get my camera to cooperate and focus, there we go. You can see that it picked up the detail fairly well. There's even the scale pattern showing in the sides of the casting. This is still setting, so I don't want to handle it too roughly. I can feel it still setting. I just got impatient and wanted to see how it worked. Alright, so there you go. You can see how well it picked up the detail. Picked it up quite well, if you ask me. And it's completely reusable. That's the even better part. So, I'll show you what happens with the Ghidorah feet when they have cured up, but I'm not going to mess with them for at least a half hour more. Because again, I made it a little too watery, and it's taking a bit for it to set up. So back in a bit.